Have you ever pondered over what the future holds for the meat industry? It's a loaded question, isn't it? With the world's growing concern over sustainability and health, a new contender has emerged in the meat aisle, stirring up quite a storm of controversy. And no, it's not a new type of exotic animal, but rather a product that looks, cooks and supposedly tastes like meat, but is made entirely from plants. Yes, we're talking about plant-based meat substitutes. But why are these faux meats all the rage? Well, it has a lot to do with our changing attitudes towards food. As we become more conscious of our health and the health of our planet, we're seeking out alternatives to traditional meats, which are often associated with high environmental costs and health risks. Plant-based meats, on the other hand, promise to deliver the taste and texture of meat without the baggage. They're designed to be better for the environment, better for animals, and potentially better for us. But, like any disruptive innovation, plant-based meats are not without their share of controversy and skepticism. Some argue that these products are just highly processed foods in disguise, packed with artificial ingredients and questionable additives. Others worry about the long-term health effects of swapping out real meat for these alternatives. And then there are those who simply can't stomach the idea of a burger that bleeds beet juice instead of blood. Despite the controversy, the plant-based meat industry is booming. Consumption rates are on the rise, and big-name companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods are leading the charge. Their mission? To make plant-based meat that's not just an acceptable substitute for animal meat, but a preferable one. But as we stand on the brink of this potential food revolution, it's important to ask, are plant-based meats really the future of the meat industry? Or are they just a trendy fad destined to fade away? And most importantly, are they really a healthier, more sustainable choice? So let's put on our investigative hats and dive deeper into the world of plant-based meat substitutes. Let's get to the root of the plant-based meat phenomenon and find out if it's the savior or saboteur of the meat industry. So who exactly is driving this plant-based revolution? In recent years, the plant-based meat industry has experienced a surge like never before. Statistically speaking, the plant-based meat market is projected to reach a staggering $58 billion by the end of this decade. So, who's behind this dramatic rise? At the forefront, we have companies such as Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods. These pioneers are not just creating products, they're shaping a new narrative around what we perceive as meat. But they're not alone. Traditional meat companies like Tyson Foods and Hormel have also jumped on the bandwagon, recognizing the potential in this burgeoning sector. These trailblazers are driven by a mix of motivations. Firstly, there's the environmental angle. Producing plant-based meats uses significantly less water, land, and energy compared to conventional meat production, making it a more sustainable option in the face of our climate crisis. Then, there's the ethical aspect. By creating plant-based alternatives that closely mimic the taste and texture of meat, these companies offer a solution for those who love the taste of meat but are troubled by animal welfare concerns in the meat industry. Lastly, health considerations also play a part. With increasing awareness about the potential health risks associated with excessive meat consumption, such as heart disease and certain types of cancer, plant-based meats offer a different path. They often contain less saturated fat and cholesterol than their animal-based counterparts, positioning them as potentially healthier alternatives. But let's not forget the consumers. The rise in plant-based meat consumption is also driven by you and me. Whether it's for health, environmental, or ethical reasons, more and more people are choosing to incorporate plant-based meats into their diets. So there you have it. The plant-based meat revolution is a collective effort, driven by innovative companies backed by environmental and health research, and empowered by consumer choice. But what exactly are these plant-based meats made of? It may surprise you to know what goes into creating these meat substitutes. Let's begin with the base. Most plant-based meats are built around proteins. Peas, brown rice, and mung beans are common. You might recognize these as the ingredients in your favorite protein shake. These proteins are extracted and textured to mimic the fibrous structure of meat. Next up, we have the fats. Coconut oil, canola oil, and cocoa butter are often used to mimic the marbling effect you'd find in a juicy steak. These fats not only add flavor, but they also help in creating a satisfying, meaty sizzle when cooked. Now, how do we get that meaty color? Enter beet juice, extract, and other similar natural colorants. These give plant-based burgers that signature pinkish hue and even allow the meat to bleed a little when cooked, just like a real beef patty. But what about the taste? It's one thing to look like meat, but another to taste like it. For that, manufacturers turn to a molecule called heme. It's a component of hemoglobin in blood. And it's what gives meat its distinctive flavor. Some companies, like Impossible Foods, use a plant-based version derived from soy. Of course, like most processed foods, plant-based meats also contain some additives. These can include methyl cellulose, a culinary binder often found in ice cream and sauces, and food starch, a common thickening agent. Now let's compare these ingredients with what's in traditional meat. When you buy a grass-fed steak, you're essentially getting one ingredient, beef, but that's not the whole story. That beef comes with its own set of considerations, like the animal's diet and the use of antibiotics or hormones. So, while the ingredient list for plant-based meats may be longer and less familiar, it's not necessarily more concerning than what might be lurking in your average cut of meat. There's a lot to consider here, and as with any food choice, it's important to look beyond the ingredient list. Next, we'll delve into the potential benefits and drawbacks of these plant-based alternatives. Let's now weigh in on the pros and cons of these plant-based meats. Like everything in life, plant-based meats have their advantages and disadvantages. Let's start with the good. The environmental benefits of plant-based meats are hard to ignore. Traditional meat production is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. It's also a significant drain on resources, requiring vast amounts of water, land, and feed. In contrast, the production of plant-based meats uses a fraction of these resources, making it a more sustainable choice. Another advantage is the ethical implications. Plant-based meats offer a cruelty-free alternative to traditional meat, sidestepping the often harsh realities of industrial farming. This is a significant draw for those concerned about animal welfare. From a health perspective, plant-based meats can provide a valuable source of protein without the saturated fats and cholesterol found in animal products. They can be a beneficial addition to a balanced diet. But, as with most things, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. One critique, often leveled at plant-based meats, is that they are highly processed. While they can mimic the taste and texture of meat, achieving this often requires a complex list of ingredients and a high degree of processing. This includes the use of additives, which some consumers are wary of. Another concern is the long-term health effects of certain ingredients. Some plant-based meats use soy protein isolate, a processed form of soy that has been linked to health concerns. While the research is still ongoing, it's something to be aware of. Finally, while plant-based meats can be lower in saturated fat and cholesterol, they aren't always lower in calories or sodium. It's crucial to read labels and make informed choices. So there you have it. Plant-based meats are a complex issue, offering significant benefits, but also raising valid concerns. They represent a promising step towards a more sustainable and ethical food system. But like all food products, they should be consumed in moderation as part of a balanced diet. How does plant-based meat stack up against traditional grass-fed meat? We'll delve into that in the next segment. It's time for a showdown: grass-fed meat versus plant-based meat. Let's tackle this from three angles: nutritional profiles, environmental consequences, and of course, the culinary experience. Firstly, the nutritional face-off. Grass-fed meat, a source of high-quality protein, is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, vitamins A and E, and antioxidants. On the other hand, plant-based meat substitutes, while also high in protein, often lack certain essential nutrients found in animal products. However, they compensate by being fortified with these nutrients, such as vitamin B12 and iron. However, these fortified vitamins can be of the synthetic variety. It's also worth noting that plant-based meats tend to be lower in saturated fat, which can be beneficial for heart health. Now, let's consider the environmental impact. The production of grass-fed meat requires extensive land use and emits significant greenhouse gases. Conversely, plant-based meats have a smaller environmental footprint, requiring less land, water, and energy. They also emit fewer greenhouse gases. But it's not all roses. The processing of plant-based meats can be energy intensive, and monoculture farming practices can lead to biodiversity loss. Finally, the taste and texture, the real deal breakers for many. Grass-fed meat has a distinct, rich flavor that's hard to replicate. However, advancements in food technology have allowed plant-based meats to come remarkably close in mimicking the taste, texture, and even the bleeding effect of real meat. Still, some might argue that there's an uncanny valley of taste that plant-based meats haven't quite crossed yet. In conclusion, both grass-fed and plant-based meats have their pros and cons, and the choice between them often boils down to personal priorities, whether it's nutrition, environmental impact, or taste that tops your list. It's clear that both types of meat can coexist in our diets. But what does this mean for our health? The billion-dollar question: is plant-based meat actually healthier? As we delve into the health implications, let's remember that health isn't just about calories and nutrients. It's about the overall dietary pattern and lifestyle choices. Plant-based meats, like the products from Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, are often touted as healthier alternatives to traditional meat. They're usually lower in saturated fats and cholesterol, which are known contributors to heart disease. But let's not forget, they're still processed foods. They're created in labs, not grown on farms, and they often contain additives and preservatives. Does this mean they're unhealthy? Not necessarily. It's all about balance and moderation. Eating plant-based meat every once in a while won't hurt you, but relying on it as your primary protein source may not be the best choice. Let's consider the research. Studies comparing plant-based diets with omnivorous diets have shown mixed results. Some research suggests that vegetarians and vegans have lower risks of heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. However, these studies often don't differentiate between whole foods plant-based diets and those that include processed plant-based foods. So, what do the experts say? Nutritionists and dietitians generally agree that a diet rich in whole foods, including fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins, is the healthiest choice. They're less enthusiastic about processed foods, whether they're plant-based or not. As for plant-based meats, the consensus seems to be that they're a step in the right direction, especially for people who are unwilling or unable to give up meat entirely. They can be a useful tool for reducing meat consumption and transitioning to a more plant-based diet. But like all processed foods, they should be consumed in moderation. Ultimately, the healthiest diet is one that works for you. It's It's about balance, variety, and eating in a way that makes you feel good. So, whether you choose to include plant-based meats in your diet or not, the most important thing is to make conscious, mindful choices about what you eat. Let's recap what we've learned. We've traversed the landscape of plant-based meats. Let's take a moment to reflect. We embarked on an exploration of a burgeoning industry, one that is reshaping our food landscape and challenging our traditional perceptions of meat. We've discovered the key players behind this movement. Companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, who are driving the surge in popularity of plant-based meats. We've delved into the ingredients that make up these products, learning that they are primarily composed of proteins derived from plants like peas and soy and colored with beet juice extract. We've weighed the pros and cons, acknowledging the lower environmental impact of plant-based meats and their potential health benefits, whilst not turning a blind eye to their highly processed nature and the presence of additives. We've compared grass-fed and plant-based meats, considering their nutritional profiles, environmental footprints, and the sensory experience they offer. We've also scrutinized the health implications of plant-based meats, seeking expert opinions and examining scientific studies. We've found that the healthiness of these products can vary widely, and that the final verdict is often dependent on individual dietary needs and lifestyle choices. The future of plant-based meat is a thrilling uncertainty. Will it remain a niche market, or will it become a dominant force in the food industry? Will it continue to improve in taste and texture, becoming indistinguishable from its animal-based counterpart? Only time will tell. Yet one thing is clear, plant-based meats have ignited a conversation about our food choices, their impact on our planet, and their implications for our health. This dialogue is not just about meat, it's about sustainability, it's about ethics, it's about the kind of world we want to leave for future generations. As we move forward, let's continue to ask questions, seek answers, and make informed choices. Let's not be swayed by trends, but rather guided by our values, our health, and our responsibility towards our planet. But before we go, we have one last thing for you. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of plant-based meats. We've delved into the rise and significance of this innovative industry, explored its key players and the motivations behind their ventures. We've dissected what exactly goes into these plant-based alternatives and compared them to traditional grass-fed meat. We've weighed the pros and cons, considering environmental impact, health implications, and taste. The world of food is ever evolving, and it's clear that plant-based meats are making a significant impact. Whether they're the savior or saboteur of the meat industry is a question that will continue to unfold. It's a complex issue, one that invites us to consider our values, health, and the future of our planet. So, what's your take? We encourage you to continue the conversation, share your thoughts, and spread awareness. Give the video a thumbs up if you found it informative. Don't forget to subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay informed and make choices that align with your values and health.